Hello and welcome. Welcome to you wherever you are around the world. In particular, welcome to the youths of Asia, whether you're from Vanuatu or from Bangladesh. This is just for you. This is our third in a series of land-based jobs, webinars on land-based jobs for youth. And we want to make sure that you can fully participate. So the first thing you need to know is look at the bottom of the screen and you would see the translation button, because we have English, Russian, Chinese, and Arabic just for you. But apart from that, we'd like you to participate so you can ask your questions via Zoom or social media. And today, it's about you building your business and you grabbing the opportunity. So stay tuned, because we have people who are going to tell you just how to do those two things: build your business and grab the opportunity. To begin this, and to introduce you to the speakers who will tell you all about this, it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce our Deputy Executive Secretary, Ms. Tina Birmpili, and our moderator, yes, the lady you know very well, Wagaki. Join us. Welcome. We are happy to have you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are joining us today. I hope you and your loved ones, first of all, are safe and healthy. We are happy to be able to resume our webinar series on land-based jobs for youth amid the pandemic, which has hit hard all of us. The Secretariat hopes that these webinars will encourage young people to innovate, to become job creators in the land sector. Our panel today is an inspiration for us all, but especially for our young audience. Our panelists are a living proof that young people are ready to and are able to change the production methods and our consumption habits. Our panelists will share the secrets of their success, but also the challenges they faced and the perseverance they have demonstrated. Their success was not guaranteed simply by the fact that they decided to start up their business. Their success was the result of the risk they took and the knowledge they acquired on their community. The community to sell, the community to compete, the community where the materials are coming from. So let me simply introduce to our panelists. The food systems in place today cannot serve our future growing population. Shameek Chakravarty from India is a trailblazer in this field. A computer scientist straight out of college, he created startups that serve tech giants such as Amazon and Yahoo. At about 35 years old, he walked away from what is now a booming technology industry to start a land-based business. His venture is one that can change our food systems. His model is unique. He could franchise it, and not just in India, but globally. Thank you for joining us today. More urban people want to grow their food. Coronavirus has accelerated the growth of suburbia, as well as rural areas and town centers on the periphery of large cities. When Zhang from China graduated from university 13 years ago, returned to her rural home with a vision for her hometown. Today, she has a thriving land-based business empire in real estate. It covers 68,000 square meters of land, which is about the size of 10 international football fields. Zhang turned 30 years old barely 2 years ago. Welcome, Zhang. Mincheol Jeong studied character animation in film at one of the world's most prestigious schools, the video department at California Institute of the Arts, at the University of California. The department was founded and created by Walt Disney. So how does he create a futuristic green business model, you may ask? Through gaming that grows trees. Tree Planet, which he set up at age 24, is an award-winning social enterprise. It was featured at the G20 summit in Seoul in 2010. He has built 3 such ventures, all successful. Is there a secret to success? I think, Mincheol Jeong, I look forward to hearing from you and tell the story to my son, who is aspiring to do something similar. Mrs. Gulzhamal Issayeva from Kazakhstan is a specialist in green economy and a proponent of disruptive technologies that she believes will power landscape restoration in the Aral Sea region and Central Asia. Following the first three presentations, Mrs. Issayeva briefly tells us what disruptive technologies can bring to the land sector, and then respond to each of the three presentations briefly before we turn to questions and answers. Shameek, Zhang, Mincheol, Gulzhamal, thank you for accepting our invitation to come and share your experiences and insights. The people before you are more than young people who are curious about you. They are change makers. They are the community that looks to connect with you. Thank you for making the time to speak to them, and thank you for honoring us with your presence. Without further ado, let me hand over now to our moderator, my colleague, Mrs. Wagaki-Wisniewski, to lead the discussion. Thank you.
But broadly speaking, I look at it as inefficiencies that are there in the farming sector in India are in three categories, right? There are production inefficiencies. When I say production inefficiencies, this is, how do you get good yield from the land that you have, right? How do you make sure that the seeds that you are using are good? How do you make sure that you know when to grow what, right? So all of these things related to production, what happens when there's a disease which comes in, right? The second is distribution inefficiencies. Okay, you have produced your crop. How do you get it to people? And this is one of the really, really big problems, not just in India, but across the world, right? In India, between farm to fork, there are approximately 6 different intermediaries, right? So that obviously has a problem that farmers end up getting just 15% or to 20% of what the consumer pays. At the same time, there's a lot of wastage when things pass across this distribution chain. Several problems, and because of those problems, a lot of opportunities are there as well. For example, the cold chain system in India, right, for fresh produce is less than 10% of what is actually required, right? So there is a lot of wastage because of that, right? So distribution is the second piece. Then third, of course, is financing, right? The way you model risk for land-based businesses could be very different, right? Now, and it depends. So for example, if you're looking at agriculture, right, there are so many factors which are outside your control. And one problem that we see, especially in India, is that being able to quantify that risk because of the lack of availability of data is a big problem, right? And again, with every problem, there is an opportunity. So essentially, from an ecosystem perspective, if you see, one of the things that we faced also when we started our business was we saw that a lot of things were broken across production, distribution, and financing in the Indian farming scenario. And we were kind of a little overwhelmed because we would say, hey, okay, let's try to figure out how to get good seeds to farmers. But then we would realize, okay, even if we get good seeds to farmers, the farmer still might not make money because by the time his produce reaches the market, 40% of that is wasted, right? So this is something, and this actually inspired us to rethink the whole food system in a different way to see whether there was a different sort of a solution which kind of tries to fix all of these inefficiencies across production, distribution, and financing, right? So essentially, but an ecosystem needs support from all of these three angles, right? There needs to be, and this support needs to be both from private entities as well as from government as well, right? Some of these require investments which are at such a large scale that private companies might not have access to the capital to be able to do that, right?
Wonderful. So then let me just follow up on that one, because I think that's key, solving inefficiencies. What system did you set up? So,
sure.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. So what we said was, let's see, all of these inefficiencies, there's a very simple way to kind of solve that. And that's to kind of go back to our roots and see how people used to produce and consume food. So people used to produce food. They used to get, let's say, 5 different types of vegetables that they have produced. Now they would barter with others, for example, right? And they would say, hey, you are growing rice. Can you give me some rice and I'm going to give you some vegetables? So, but of course, in the modern day, it's kind of difficult. So essentially, the model that we said was, let's bypass this existing system, which has 5 or 6 intermediaries, which causes a lot of problems. Let's connect the farmer and the consumer together in an innovative model, okay? And the model, actually, there is a lot of similarities with how Tree Planet from Michael does stuff, because we have been called a real life Farmville, for example, right? So what we do is we partner with farmers, we divide up their farms into small patches of land. We call them mini farms. These are as small as 600 square feet. And what we have seen is 600 square feet land is actually enough to grow food for a small family of 2 to 3 people in terms of fresh produce, right? In terms of vegetables. So what we do is, let's say somebody has 1 acre, which is about 42,000 square feet of land. We would divide it up into 50 or 60 such mini farms. The farmer takes care of these mini farms, right? We provide them seeds, saplings, etc. So a lot of the production related inefficiencies are taken care of us because we make sure the right seeds reach them and things like that. Distribution inefficiencies are gone because consumers directly buy from those farmers, whatever grows in that 600 square feet patch of land, right? And financing inefficiencies are gone as well because consumers pay a fixed rent every month, right? So you get the rent at the beginning of the month, and then as a farmer, you have money to invest in your seeds. You have money to hire labor if required. You have money to put back as fertilizers in the soil if you need to, right? So consumers pay a fixed amount, which is about $40 per month, $35 to $40 per month, which is what the consumer pays. The farmer basically takes care of crops for him in a particular patch of land. We take care of connecting them to taking care of the logistics, etc. And this kind of solves a lot of these problems for people. We use technology in this process because India being a country like it is, right, where, and we started this business out of Bangalore. And in Bangalore, there are people who speak probably 50 different languages, right? The farmer might speak a different language altogether compared to the consumer. So what we did was we built a lot of technology. So the farmers have an app, the consumers have an app. So all of their communication base essentially happens through these apps, right? And they don't need to know each other's language. All of the project management, information on how crops are growing, videos, photos, updates from the farm, all of that goes to the consumer in his app. So essentially, the consumer almost has fractional ownership of a small farm, which he is able to see updates on his mobile phone, and he's able to get food delivered to it from him. So which is why a lot of people tell us it's like a farming game, but you actually get vegetables every month as part of the farming game. So that's what we do.
Fantastic. So I have one question quickly because I think we've exhausted our time on this. So if a young person wants to start a business venture to solve some inefficiencies, presumably they're at a disadvantage compared to an older person like me who's probably earned some money and has the finance to start with. What are the benefits of starting this as a young person so that young people know that they can do this? What is the advantage?
Yes, so I think the biggest advantage of starting a business as a young person is that your opportunity cost is low, right? In the sense, in the early days of your career, for example, your salaries are lower, right? When you start a business, you are giving up on that salary, right? And you are saying, hey, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to stop getting a monthly paycheck, right? And I'm going to start this business. Now, when you are older and you're earning lots of money in salaries, then obviously you tend to lose a lot more if the business does not work out. And remember, some businesses will work out, some businesses will not work out. So that's perfectly fine. So I think the biggest advantage for me to start a business as a young person is that your risk is actually much, much lower because you have much less to lose, right? That's number one. Number two is a lot of businesses, especially when it comes to technology, is about looking at things in a different dimension, right? For example, if I was somebody, I did not come from a farming background, right? If I came from a farming background, I would have got too many doubts about this model that we follow. Would have been, oh, this is not going to work. How are farmers going to do this? So many vegetables, will we be able to grow, right? Too much of labor effort, right? So I think the fact that I was an outsider and I did not come from farming background actually helped me, right? Because I was able to take this decision. So the same thing happens for young people as well, because you are a little bit of an outsider from the existing system. You've just graduated from college. So you are willing to take a lot of those risks, which other people would say, oh no, this is not going to work.
Okay, fantastic. That brings me to the next person, who's Mincheol Jeong, who has been very successful. At 24, he set up Tree Planet and 3 others after that, and it's gaming. So Mincheol, what have been the market and policy requirements that have made your land-based business venture to thrive, all 3 of them? Looking across those successes, what are the market and policy requirements that have made it possible at a minimum?
Okay, thank you for the question. Although we started our business model with the gaming business, but we've pivoted many times. So I can say there are many business areas in different fields. The policy requirements that Tree Planet has experienced and felt so far are three things. The first one was the human resources development. Like Tree Planet, land-based business ventures are often set up their factories or research centers and offices in rural areas. And sometimes they go there and sometimes they go back to the city. However, most young people are concerned about starting a career in rural areas. So when like Tree Planet, company wants to set up their offices, R&D centers in local area, it is better to design how to commute from the city area to the rural area, or to consider providing facilities for excellent talents to conduct independent research areas. At the local government level, and it's very important to provide infrastructure support for promising companies to research and develop their core technologies. The second one was the cooperation with government-owned research institutions. Most of the government research institutions have they have dedicated their long-term research plans, but they are very thirsty for commercializing their research outcomes. So Tree Planet has experienced in collaborating with various research institutions to transfer and commercialize and further develop their technologies, as they have already been researched and verified by their institutions. So the method of the successful transferring and commercializing technologies already developed by excellent researchers in government-owned institutions, it helps a way to reduce trial and errors. The third one is the most important thing, the commercializing. This is most difficult part. No matter how good a technology or product is, it must be commercially viable. However, it is also a company's ability to package great product in such a way that the public will like them and promote them in timely manner. For this kind of work, it is important that key talents with good sales and marketing skills join from the early stage of the venture. Think about it and make small tests to create products and services that products like, public likes. That's three things that we consider the minimum market and the policy requirements.
Wonderful. So you have to think about the people, you have to think about the infrastructure and research related to that, to the people. And then you have to think about the commercialization, the distribution, the one inefficiency that Shameek talked about. I think that keeps coming back. Thank you so much, Mincheol. I'll come back to you, but I want to go to a different model. So these two models we've heard about is based on one type of policy environment. I want to invite Zhang, because China is a vast country, and I suppose very different from the Republic of Korea and very different from India and very different from Germany as well. So what are the minimum, the same question I asked Mincheol, what are the minimum market and policy requirements needed in your environment? Because you also have a huge market for a business to thrive like yours. Zhang, you have the floor. Do you hear me, Zhang?
可以听得到，听得到。
Okay, so you have the floor. Thank you.
大家好，很高兴在这里与大家相聚。刚才我首先回答一下刚才主持人所提到的这个问题。 有关于土地方面的这一些政策，就中国而言，中国现在出台了乡村振兴法，在大力推动乡村振兴战略实施的过程当中，现在土地的政策有所这个放宽，同时呢，现在呢，从省级到市级到县级，政府以及这个国有企业都成立了很多专业的土地平台公司，做土地的整理，做这个新型城镇化，做这个土地整理以后的产业类的项目。那么具体一些政策来讲呢，原来的时候土地的这种交易仅限于政府层面的进行一下交易，但是现在就是说，作为一个市场主体，作为市场，作为公司，也可以在土地方面去进行交易。比如说，现在我们在中国，在做的这个新型城镇化的建设，那么中国的新型城镇化讲的核心是人的城镇化。不仅要解决人民生活需求，人民在生活方面的这种改善，更重要的呢，会在解决了他的生活需求，要解决周边的生态环境，然后再解决它的生产，这样就是达到了生活、生产、生态于一体。同时呢，就是在做这个城镇化土地整理的这个过程当中，通过这种村庄的集聚、村庄的合并，把这个偏远的、功能不完善的、配套不完善的这些村庄、这些社区，往这个功能要素集中的地方进行去集中。完了以后，腾空的土地，那么可以再进行做产业。同时呢，土地腾空的指标可以做到其他区域做其他的一些商业的产业项目。那么在这个过程当中，现在是它的商业模式是，你可以企业独立在做，也可以和政府的平台公司一起在做，也有的政府在独立操作。所以说，通过这些模式，通过这些的现在呢，给我们的做关于土地方面的这种项目提供了广阔的空间。谢谢。
Wonderful. So that's a very different model where, this is the first time actually I'm getting to hear that you cannot do trade, but you can do enterprising. But I think one of the things that stands out for me from China is that they have policies that are looking at integration and that are looking at the rural areas as different from the urban areas, but trying to connect those. So that's a very different model, and I think a very interesting one as well. So let me move to my next speaker, who's Gulzhamal Issayeva. And Gulzhamal, you're an expert on disruptive technologies. And I think all of these three speakers, I'll come back to Zhang's a little bit, because she has built an empire that started with real estate that has gone now to incorporate farmland and landscaping in the environment. I wonder what your thoughts are when you listen to this and think about the youth and the jobs that we're talking about, land-based jobs. What are your thoughts?
Thank you very much. I have listened on three presentations, so I would like to underline three key points which can be applied to any business, including the land-based business in any development country, which is applicable to universal, I can say. First example from the India, when the speaker touched upon very important point, is the gap between the producers and consumers. This is the challenge which we face in Central Asia as well. In developing countries where the agriculture is the one of the dominating economy sector, this gap exists, and the way how it was solved in India is very interesting and can be applicable to any countries, especially in developing countries. Next presentation from Korea, the very important point which I also can say as universal is the collaboration between different parties when you involve to your business all the sectors, all interested stakeholders like government, research, academia, business, and the local community. This also should be one of the key elements when you start your business, land-based business. You should always think about this collaboration, how to gain out of this collaboration. And the next presentation from China, I also would like to underline the point of integration of different aspects, like a social, environmental aspects, and economical aspects. So 3 pillars of the sustainable development also should be under the concern when you start your business. And so these 3 points, which I would like to underline as a universal for any developing country, I can think, and any business which you are planning to initiate.
Okay, so interesting. I'd like to follow up on that with another question, because from my reading of what's happening in the private markets, is the people that are really making it, like Amazon or Uber or even in gaming, are the ones that disrupt an entire industry and change it. Coronavirus has set us up in an environment where a lot of things are going to change. So how is technology evolving, since this is an area that you're looking at, and likely in general to influence young people who are trying to create their businesses? So what we're thinking is, what are the forward-thinking ideas about technology that you can bring to the table, especially relating to land-based jobs?
Thank you for the question. Technologies is the one of the key elements of development paradigm, and today it cannot be ignored, especially in this post-coronavirus period. From the other hand, we have another challenges like some environmental challenges and climate pressure. And technologies is one of the way to address both, like developing and in the same time addressing some challenges like water scarcity, temperature increase, and etc. And young people as the open-minded, very flexible people, they can be like a bridge between the land-based businesses and new modern innovative technologies. And that's what we saw during the Disruptive Technology Challenge, which was organized by World Bank this year for Aral Sea Basin land management. We received more than a few hundred innovative ideas around the world. So it shows like as the young people, they think differently. Shameek also underlined this point. So young people are very open-minded, flexible, innovative thinking. And I think this can be a very big advantage for the young people to start their business on the land-based business.
Thank you so much. Okay, so with those opening remarks, I want us to go to the Q&A session, and this is where we have the people, the participants who are with us, sending us the questions. As those come in, I will start with the ones that we received pre-submitted, and this came way back in February. So I want to thank the young people who submitted this for being patient with us. So let's start with the question from Jeong from the Republic of Korea. And just so that you're prepared for this, I will be asking this question to Shameek and Mincheol and Gulzhamal. So prepare yourselves. So let's listen to the question from Jeong, Elders.
Nowadays, many land-based careers combine cutting-edge science, engineering, and IT, but how can these developments be implemented in regions where the infrastructure for these technologies hasn't been built, or in regions where the land-based industry has not developed enough yet? Would uneven development of land-based industry around the globe result in difference when starting a land-based career, and if so, how?
Wonderful. So this is a young woman who's concerned about the differences in development. Shameek, your take.
Sure. So I think, so the good part about land-based businesses is that it's one of the oldest categories of business that has been around ever since human civilization has been there, right? And if you look at India itself, although about, I think, 19% of India's GDP is coming from agriculture, but almost 43% of India is actually employed in agriculture, right? So that's like half the country, right, is employed in agriculture. And everybody needs food, right? So it's there in some form or the other, right? In every part of India, in every part of the world, land-based businesses are there in some form or the other. It's one of the oldest forms. So now coming to the technology perspective, right? Now, obviously, in some areas, you might see that technology adoption is lower. And this technology can be in various different dimensions, right? It could be production technology, right? For example, in some areas, for example, you might be using drones to, plant seeds or spray pesticides or whatever, right? In some areas, you might be using mobile phones. So a lot of our work has been with the use of mobile phones. And yes, definitely when we see changes in mobile phone penetration, smartphone penetration, we have seen a significant rise in new businesses coming up using those technologies, right? So as entrepreneurs or as prospective entrepreneurs, we always should keep an eye out for technology changes or technology adoption that's happening, right? So I wouldn't, if an area, let's say you are based out of an area where a lot of technology changes have not reached yet, you should not get disheartened by that, because again, that's an opportunity, right? Because some technology will come that will change the situation very quickly. People who can grab that, right, can build really large businesses. And most of the largest companies in the world have actually got started, not just land-based businesses. They have got started because technology created some sort of an opportunity, right? I mean, Jeff Bezos sitting in his garage could start Amazon because he saw, oh, there's this interesting thing called internet. In those days, there was hardly any sales online, right? So the opportunity looked very limited, but the technology became available. In India, last few years, because of mobile internet getting spread in a very affordable way across the country, that has empowered a lot of farmers, for example. And we see that because we see a lot of farmers having access to mobile phones now. That's, for example, one of the things that we leveraged, right? We saw, oh, it's an opportunity. Technology was not there. Now these mobile phones are there in the pockets of every farmer. So let's go ahead and use that. So as an entrepreneur, you have to watch out for those changes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Mincheol, your take, what would you say?
It's a very good question. But if you think about it backwards, people in developed countries sometimes do not have the courage to start a business easily due to industry competitions and preoccupations. So I have developed business cases in Nepal, Indonesia, but I was able to make easier and clear decisions in a situation where infrastructure was lacking. So there were many areas that no one had tried in developing countries. So there were few competitors and goals were very clear. So when you looking at these two cases, I think that entrepreneurs in developing countries that I have experienced or observed were able to work with entrepreneurs in developed countries to seize clear opportunities with high technologies and successful businesses.
Wonderful. Those are two very good points. I'll come to them. Gulzhamal.
Yes, very interesting question. As I said, the youngs are very open-minded, and flexibility and adaptiveness capacity is one of the characters for young people. So my advice would be to think about to be adaptive to the local conditions. And in case if there are no infrastructure, we can think about something like natural or organic farming, which has now very high demand. And in the countries where the technologies are in place, we can think about more high-tech technologies like an urban agriculture, vertical farming, etc. So being adaptive to the conditions which exist always gives an opportunity to initiate the new types of businesses.
Brilliant. I mean, I think three things there that I want to capture. The idea that the fact that somebody is fast in the market with a new technology does not mean it will last. I think about Netscape and I think about the internet. Netscape came fast, but the internet changed everything, right? And then Mincheol and Gulzhamal, I think, have said these are opportunities. I think that's really, really great. So let's move to the next question. That's from China, and that's very, very different. So let's listen to the question from Nanzhang from China.
Hi, my name is Zhang. I'm from China. I graduated last year with a master's degree in international forestry. And I know the topic of this webinar is about the developing business and seizing opportunities. So I'm wondering, do you have any suggestion for a forestry student like me who want to developing their career in China? Thanks.
So to put that question into context from Nanjiang, who's passionate about land-based jobs and is looking for opportunities. She has a forestry degree, is interested in working in that area, but there is certification that comes with it. And she wants to avoid that certification and wonders, is there a job for me? Zhang, what would you say? She's muted, I think. We don't hear the interpretation.
没有，现在能听得到吗？
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So what would you say? What would you say to this young woman?
很高兴这个来自中国张楠这个同学的提问。现在在我们中国对年轻人的创业，我们提供了很多的，我们国家为这个青年人提供了很多的创业的空间和机会。我们的政府在大力推进双招双引，为我们大众创业、万众创新提供了很多的这个优惠的政策。刚才您提到的这个是不是需要一些证件，或者是不是需要？我在之前看到你的文字的这个提问当中说，是不是需要先考这个公务员？其实现在不需要。因为这个我们在创业和就业的过程当中有太多的机会。首先来讲就是刚才我在回答问题的时候，回答主持人的问题的时候，我提到过，现在关于林业也好，土地也好，在我们中国有很多的载体和平台来承接这方面的业务，并不一定是与林业与土地相关的公信力部门、政府部门才有权利去做这些事情，而是现在我们的企业。我们的私营企业、我们的国有企业、我们的民营企业，以及我们公司合营的企业，都可以去做这方面的业务。同时呢，如果说你在关于土地方面，你有好的商业模式，能够帮地方政府化解当前所遇到的问题和当前政府自己难以推动的问题。或者是你的商业模式能吸引众多的消费者、投资者，让他们这个支持你，那么你在这个创业过程当中，你的机会会更多。同时，如果说你想借助一个平台的力量，或者借助一个政府的力量，那么你不需要去考公务员，也不需要去考什么证件，你可以到国有企业的公司进行去。
Okay, thank you so much. I'm wondering whether any of the panelists would like to respond to that question as well, not just in China, but what's the added value of certification? And also as it relates to women, what does that mean? So yes, Gulzhamal?
Maybe I would like to touch another aspect. This lady, she said she's graduated from international forestry specialty. So I think in this context, one of the new niche which is available now is the concept on payment for ecosystem services, which can be applied to different countries, especially in transboundary context. So having this kind of specialization in the forestry can be a highly demanded specialist.
Okay, thank you. Mincheol, what would you say?
Korea also requires a certification process. Most of them receive certification exam when they graduate from related departments from their universities. but a high level of certification is required to participate in a large-scale national forestry projects. Sometimes certifications are more like formalities, but from an entrepreneur's perspective, we study the certifications and to gain a certainty about their technical qualities. So yes, we also need to study more and more.
Specialization is useful. Okay, Shameek, do you have something to say about India? You also have a huge market there.
Yeah, so I mean, I think these certifications, etc., help from two aspects, right? One is if you're going to take a bank loan, for example, right, and you're making a project plan, and there people are looking at the promoter's background, right? At that point of time, obviously, showing that you have the technical qualification required to do this project would help you in that. So from that perspective, having said that, though, again, some of the largest businesses have been built by people who are completely from outside that domain, right? So let not a lack of certification prevent you from trying out new ideas, but it does help. It does help in also getting you the right industry contacts, for example, right? You know people who can help you, because when you are building a business, it's like how people say, right? You need a village to bring up a child, right? So similarly, building a business on your own without support systems is much tougher, right? And building a business in general is tough. If you have support from the government, if you have support from other people in the industry, right, that definitely helps. And when you participate in some of these certification programs, etc., you get to make a lot of friends in the industry as well. So it's definitely useful from that perspective.
Fantastic. I think you make a very good point there about, you know, if you're asking me to give you a loan, how do I know that there's going to be a return on investment if you can't prove who you are? So it's a question of credibility as well. I think that's good. But as you can see, for the participants, all of these people have come from very different backgrounds. And so the fact that they've been able to set an enterprise without necessarily probably having the certification per se, say something. So let's go to question number 3 from Lucia Park. This is also from the Republic of Korea.
Hi, my name is Lucia Park, and my question is, what is your advice for young people who have a vision and enthusiasm for land-based businesses but lack funding and knowledge? How can we reconcile these challenges and facilitate young people to take advantage of opportunities such as government funding? Thank you.
So this, again, is a question about disparities, because we can't assume, as you said, Shameek, that everyone has certification. And I think a majority of those that are working in the land-based sector right now, young people probably don't have it. So, you know, what can be done? Mincheol, what would you say? What have you found in the gaming sector, perhaps, that you can bring to the table?
So when we started our company, I funded myself, my money to the company. So to answer your question, first, Tree Planet can also invest your business. So contact us.
Wonderful.
So when Tree Planet started its business 11 years ago, like 99% of the advice was that environmental issues were difficult to commercialize. But there's always a miracle. 1 year ago, 1 year after we started our business, Marcos Montoya, who's also attending this event, emailed us for cooperation with UNCCD. So since then, we were able to grab many opportunities. Now Tree Planet has been very busy with ESG issues, and many entrepreneurs have applied to solve global environmental problems. So it's very difficult to have 100% certainty if your business will success, but I believe that opportunities will come if you persist. Have faith for a long time.
Okay, thank you. Zhang, what would you say?
我觉得呢，作为一个年轻人，有这个创业的激情，首先是非常好的。但是呢，在创业过程当中，资金这个问题确实是一个大的问题。 如果说你没有自己的自有资金，或者是有家庭朋友的这种支持，那么你一定要构建一个自己的这个独特的商业模式，然后吸引政府和其他投资人进行投资你。同时呢，你可以在作为土地这方面呢，你可以做这个联合社啊，组织把这个成立这个联合社，让加入一些更多的年轻人加入进来，你们成为一个团队。这个团队当中呢，你们有技术、有商业模式、有销售渠道，那么缺少的资金，这样你有这个模式以后，能够用未来的这种收益和未来的这种愿景，让启用政府的这种产业基金。谢谢。
Thank you so much. Okay, so what I'm hearing again is be unique. Don't follow the herd, be unique. Okay, we have one last pre-submitted question, and this came from the Philippines, from somebody called Jordan Cabales. Can you shed some light on how youth from the developing nations can build their own businesses in line with ongoing globalization? So here the question is linked to how do you globalize? How do you position yourself in a globalizing world where people are not eating local, they are eating, from international markets. They're buying food from the international markets and not necessarily from the local market. How do you position yourself there? Gulzhamal.
Yes, it's a very interesting question. And this is not only challenge, but opportunity as well. The globalization should be taken as an opportunity. Internet provide the same conditions to everyone. Being the small market holder in some developing rural areas, or if you are a big businessman in developing countries, you are in internet, you have same opportunity to be interconnected. So I think this aspect gives lots of opportunity to the small scale businesses to build a partnership worldwide, to find the consumers worldwide, and to globalize the business, starting from very small farming in the local level. Moreover, the globalization, if we take from the UN system point of view, for example, we have development goals. And in case if your business is in line with established development goals, if includes all the values of its developing countries, and young businessmen, they can consider the aid support for initial investment, for example, if this projects are in line with the climate trends, for example, it also can be funded through different aids which are available in the developing countries. So this also can be considered.
Right, so, okay, globalization. Shameek.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things about globalization is that what we realize is that, one is you start searching for solutions that have been used in other parts of the world, right? And you see whether that can be applicable now, right? And it's becoming easier to adopt solutions from elsewhere into your countries, right? Because of globalization and exposure. At the same time, the other thing that we are understanding because of globalization is that the problems of humanity are very common across the world, right? Farmers are facing trouble, they're committing suicide, etc. Across the world. It's not just a problem in India, even in the United States, it's a problem, right? Even in the United States, with an average farmer having 400-acre land holding, the problems that he faces, there is actually a lot of similarity with the problems that a 1.5-acre farmer faces in India, right? He still needs government support in both of these countries. So I think that's something which is very interesting about globalization, that you can adopt solutions from one part of the globe to another, and you can also realize that the problems are all very similar. So end of the day, people want very similar things across the world as well, right? And that's where I think there are opportunities to create solutions. For example, let's just again, I'll go back to the Amazon example because I worked at Amazon.
Quickly,
right?
yes.
I mean, Jeff Bezos would always say that it does not matter which country we are launching in, right? Everybody wants convenience, everybody wants selection, everybody wants low prices. It does not matter which part of the world you are in, right? So I think that's something interesting to keep in mind when we talk about globalization and challenges.
Three good principles. Okay, Mincheol.
Yes, it's a challenging world. Tree planting continues to change our business model as well. So the environment around us is always changing. So we need to be prepared to respond to it. So I don't believe that developing countries have different opportunities than developed countries. Anyone can find an opportunity in their local areas. But it's very important to keep thinking about, like, as a business people, whether you can pay your employees by trying it out. You can find whether this is getting closer to your vision you had originally envisioned. So keep thinking, keep imagining yourself.
Wonderful. Okay, Zhang, globalization and being competitive.
关于全球化这个问题，我觉得首先呢，每一个国与国之间的这种国情不一样，他们的产业结构也不一样。但是呢，我们要做到这个互通互联，优势资源互补，借鉴每一个国家他们的优势。比如说像农业方面，在以色列就做得非常好。在城镇化方面，这个中国做得非常棒，大家可以借鉴一些中国的经验。比如说像一些特色的这种小镇，在德国做的也不错。那么首先在全球化的这个背景下，我们要互联互通，共享资源。
Okay, wonderful. I'm not going to capture everything you've said because I'm going to ask. Sorry. I'm saying I'm not going to capture everything that you have said, but I'm going to ask Tina at the end to actually, give us a summary of the things that everyone has said. We have two questions that have come in right now, and I'll start with the more general one. And, I will fill to any one of you. To boost business, especially in agriculture, don't you think that the educational part should be discussed as a basic step to success in all its parts? Legislation, social needs. So if you're going into agriculture, is agriculture for anyone who is not educated? I think it's a very provocative question because majority of the people in developing countries who don't have an education tend to end up in agriculture. What are your thoughts? Shameek, let me start with you because you're working with these kinds of farmers. What would agriculture have done for the people that you're working with, for instance? Education, yeah, for the people that you're working with in agriculture.
Yeah, so when you talk about education, you can talk about formal education or street smartness, right? Now, a lot of the farmers that we work with, we were very worried whether they'll be able to use the farmer app, because even though we made it in local languages, a lot of our farmers didn't know how to read or write, right? But what we realized was that once you give digital tools to people, people are also smart to figure out how to use them. So all of our partner farmers who were illiterate, they started using it because their son would be going to college, right? Or their daughter would be going to school, and they would actually help them use that, right? Similarly, if you look at WhatsApp is something which is connecting the country a lot. A lot of farmers are on WhatsApp. They're using WhatsApp to discover different, prices, market access, etc. Now, many farmers, they don't know how to type in WhatsApp, right? So they use WhatsApp for voice. So they would record their message on WhatsApp and send it across in a WhatsApp group, for example. So I think giving some tools to people can actually, so education does give you certain advantages, right? But there are ways around those advantages also, if you are willing to think creatively, which I think a lot of land-based entrepreneurs do. I know a lot of land-based entrepreneurs who are not educated, but who are doing a really good job.
Okay, Mincheol, your business is very technology-based. Does this apply? I mean, frankly, gaming, I don't understand it. Does it apply?
We are not only doing gaming business, but we also work with the farmers. Especially, we are working with the local farmers in Korea. Their age is about like 60s, over 60s and 70s. We ask them to collect leaves from the tree so we can make tea. First, they were like trying to use their own method and their tools, but I think it's very important to first, you have to give them a little fish, not just giving a tools. You have to give them some taste, how the success feels like. So we actually made a product from their outcomes, a really good product, working with their good partnerships, and showing them, hey, your work can be achieved like this much high. So showing them the result in all these stages, it's encouraging them to learn from themselves.
So a different approach to learning. It's not all through education. Okay, let me ask this question that's coming from DRC. You'll be pleased to know that it's not only people from Asia that actually joined us, but we have people from Africa and other regions. This is from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We have a problem with a majority of Congolese youth that is jobless and with a low education. We have put into place a program for strengthening the capacity to protect the environment and to create jobs. How could you help us? Practical, very practical question. What kind of support would you offer someone like that? Do you have capacity building initiatives, people that can link up with you? Let's start with Gulzhamal.
Yes, very practical, straight question. I think we can exchange the contacts because as I know now, during this post-coronavirus period, lots of trainings and capacity building programs are available online. So we can interconnect and I can link them to different kind of sessions, and especially in the environmental protection, or so if I heard correctly, they create a program on environmental protection and job creation. So I'm working in this area and I can provide some links for different online sessions if interesting.
I think thank you so much. And I'm wondering, I think this might go for all of you. Mincheol, do you have a facility where you can actually build capacity of partners in other regions? How do you do that normally?
When we approach new countries that we've never been developed before, we always approach with the Korean government agencies because we do not know the country's situation. So, for example, for Korea Forestry Service, we are working with them in Ethiopia, and with the Koika, we are working with farms in Rwanda. So we're starting to learn the situations in country by the help with the Korean government agencies. And then we set up our business there.
Okay, wonderful. So, but people can get in touch with you and say, we're doing this, so they can initiate it and send you an email, send to your company and say, we're working with these. Okay. Shameek, how does one connect with you if they want to franchise a little bit of that pie?
Yeah, so we have been actually exploring and experimenting with franchise, first of all, inside the country itself, right? We are still a small company. We are not able to go to all the cities and villages in India, right? So we have been experimenting inside the country, first of all, but at any point of time, we would probably also explore if there's a way to franchise out the model to other countries. So please feel free to shoot me an email, right? You can share my email address with folks. Secondly, I think getting community supported agriculture started, right? In various different forms. There are several forms. One form is what we do, but then there are community gardens, there are CSA activities. And I think community supported agriculture is something which can be adopted and should be adopted in all countries of the world, right? Because it does help get farmers and consumers together. And I'm happy to help you brainstorm with how it might work in your particular situation, right? So just shoot me an email and we'll get onto a call and we'll kind of help you think through it, right? Because we have done this now for years, so we kind of understand all the challenges that come. What would your cost structure end up being like? Have you allocated enough money for what your cost of delivery is going to be, your cost of inputs, and so on and so forth? We can definitely help you with thinking through those,
Yeah, thank you so much. Zhang, what do you offer for young people who want to start an enterprise like yours?
这个问题是非常现实的一个问题。我觉得作为我们来讲，首先你的这个要么你有好的产品技术，我们可以投资于你；要么你能够为我们中国的农民、中国的农业、中国的农村提供关键技术，提供销售路径，或者是更好的其他的解决方案。这样呢，我们为我们的中国的农业能够给我们搭上一辆更快的快车，这样我们可以进行帮助你、投资你，和我们携手共进、共创我们的这个理想目标。谢谢。
Thank you, thank you. That brings us to the end of the Q&A session, and that brings us to the end of my role as a moderator. I want to thank all of you. I have learned a lot myself, and trust me, my next job after retirement is looking into this area because I really am excited about what's happening. And now, with thanks to you all for participating, and also thanks to the participants for being in here, but you know that you can reach out to these people. Their contacts and their companies are on our website, so you would be able to actually reach out to them directly without waiting for us or without trying to come through us. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Tina to give us her take. She said she's listening out for her son as well. So Tina, you have the floor.
So thank you very much, Wagaki, and thanks to all the panelists. It has been a very inspiring discussion, and I really mean that. I'm very glad that I had participated in and listening to your experiences. I cannot summarize, it will be very difficult and very unfair, but let me say 4 key messages that I have taken away from this discussion. So first, what is the comparative advantage for young people? I think we have identified that the opportunity cost is low. So basically, they are more eager to take the risk because they don't have so much to lose. So the fact that they don't have a weight, they don't have a baggage, they don't carry luggage, it's their comparative advantage in order to really take the risk and invest on something new. And of course, it's very important because the young people come with fresh eyes. So again, they don't have the heaviness of the experience that the older people are carrying. What is the niche for the young people in trying to find a job and be successful? So the niche is to try to identify the broken links from cradle to grave in whatever process we have. It was mentioned by Shameek that these are the inefficiencies, but this was also mentioned by Mincheol that you need to have, when you invest on something, you need to take into account both the production, the distribution, and the financing, but also the talents that you have to ensure that what you are doing matches the needs of the community. So I think the fact that check the inefficiencies, try to see how you can sort of fill these gaps, fill these cracks between the different processes, and try to see how you can match the needs with what you offer, I think is this is a recipe for success. The third point that I got out of this discussion was the need to be flexible, agile, and adaptive to local conditions, but also you will not be successful if you don't have the support from the community. Either this community is a family, either this community can be other young people to work together in groups, or this community comes from the state, from the country, or from the local, from the municipality, as we've said also, the community-supported agriculture, which may be a good example for other regions as well, such as Africa. And finally, the role of technology, how you can bridge the land-based businesses with modern technology. This bridge comes from young people themselves, and this is what brings forward innovation. But I think we have mentioned also very interesting examples of, we don't need to also see technology as something very, very difficult to grapple with. Technology can be something that we hold in our hands. Technology is the mobile phone. So how we leverage technology that is accessible to all people and to our audiences is something very, very important, because this is where the opportunities may be. Finally, I would like to close with one sentence that has been mentioned by one of you. And it was mentioned also in my opening remarks, that opportunities will come if you persist and if you have faith. And this is, I think, the definition of the word perseverance, which I'm sure that all of you in your lives have been every day tested and tried on this concept. So thank you very much. I will now invite my colleague Yuki Hori to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Tina. Hello, everyone. My name is Yuki Hori, and I am in charge of communications in the UNCCD Secretariat. I'm here to present the vote of thanks for today's webinar. First of all, I must mention our deep appreciation to the speakers for their outstanding contributions and for patience when we had to postpone the webinar twice. I thank Deutsche Welle, our partner of this webinar series, for their cooperation, and the UN Family, UNCCD National Focal Point, Land Ambassadors, and Land Heroes for their support in outreach. I'm grateful to everyone who worked behind the scenes to make this event a success. Interpreters, UNCCD IT team and colleagues who have worked tirelessly for today. Excellent job, 2 thumbs up to you guys. And most importantly, I thank you, the participants of the seminar. It's your interest that makes this webinar meaningful. We are inspired by your great enthusiasm for finding the potential for making a green, sustainable future. We hope to see you again at the next and the final of this webinar series. It will be on Tuesday, the 26th of October. Please mark the date on your calendar. With this, let me close the 3rd UNCCD Youth webinar. Thanks again, and see you next time.